Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a pick a card reading for the time ahead. For these readings, I typically pick a overall theme of what the reading will be about. So we're going to get started with that. The first card out here is the creativity card, which I love. This was coming through with such an interesting message. Recently I watched this video of Samuel L. Jackson, the actor, in the Star Wars prequel movies, where he's asking for a purple lightsaber. So random. I don't know why the message is coming through like this, but it's kind of like, I feel like in the lore of Star Wars, the purple lightsaber has been sort of like this topic of discussion of like, what does it represent? Because in the Star Wars realm, the red lightsaber sort of represents the evil or the dark side, and the blue and the green lightsabers represent the good or the light. And so the purple, being a mix of blue and red, represents sort of like this moral kind of on the fenceness, or like, so it doesn't, I feel like it's not necessarily tied to that. It might be, there might be something in there for you about that sort of like being on the fence or being in the middle or being sort of a mix of light and dark. So it could be something like that, but because it's coming through with creativity and you have this bear here with this sort of like light at the top, right? It's kind of feeling to me like this sort of like bright idea or like a new inspiration or something like that. Like just having an idea, like Samuel L. Jackson just asking for a purple lightsaber as the actor, not as sort of contributing to anything. It's just kind of like this is some sort of like perhaps just like a personal desire of yours is just sparking something, is kind of what's coming through. And it's like, it's kind of like your wish is being granted, or it's like it perhaps is something like you're creating something in order to fulfill some sort of personal desire of yours, but it's being received by perhaps somebody else or witnessed by somebody else, because you have here the peacock as well. So these two, how I'm seeing this is kind of like, this is Samuel L. Jackson, this is George Lucas, the director. So it's kind of like you're asking somebody else for something that perhaps has nothing to do with, like, I feel like you already know this person, or it's like this, if it's not a person, it's just kind of like, maybe it's just representing sort of the universe, because what was coming through with this combination of cards is kind of like a co-creation between you and the universe or somebody else, like perhaps a partnership of some sort, or just like people around you or something. Whatever this situation is, that'll depend on which group you pick. But so it's kind of feeling like you're asking for something that is perhaps seemingly small, or it's like, it's not like a huge deal, or it's not like something that's like really profound, or it feels like it's not profound. That's why it's like something like just like asking for something that, like, what's your favorite color? Like that kind of thing. That kind of almost like trivial or not profound. I don't know how else to phrase that. Like, it's like, it feels like not something that's like a really big deal, but what's being received, or the result, or the outcome, or the fruit that comes from this very simple request kind of feels like it's revealing a lot, or it's co-creating something that's much bigger, because the whole story behind this is kind of like the simple action of asking for a purple lightsaber, which was not at all to contribute to the lore of the story, actually created this whole sort of like lore, or like a legend almost. Like, it's like creating a legend out of something that was very like trivial. Like, it's almost like an exaggeration. That's not quite the right phrasing of it, but it's like it builds, because you can see with the peacock here, there's all of this sort of like these new, it's like this light bulb becoming very many light bulbs. It's also coming through here as with something like, I was watching another interview about like one of my favorite musicians, and he was talking about how once you create a song and you put it out there, you kind of like release ownership of what that creation is, because everybody who listens to the song or consumes the media or whatever it is kind of brings their own sort of personal experience and the meaning of it and all of that. And so it's kind of like there's some sort of, perhaps you're sparking or asking or creating something, perhaps that is very personal to you, but once it's out there, it, like, everybody who comes in contact with it or consumes it brings their own intention to whatever it is you're creating, and it becomes something much bigger than the original intention of whatever it was. So that's the overall theme of the reading. I'm gonna just simply call it like a co-creation, because that's sort of what's coming through here. It's a co-creation that becomes a much bigger sort of story or energy that perhaps is beyond what you intended it for it to be, is kind of what's coming through. So I'm just going to leave it like that for the overall theme. I'll go into the individual groups, and the timestamps are in the description box below. So for group 1, we have the rest card. For group 2, we have flow. And for group 3, we have reflection. So I will hold up all three so that you can compare them. So group 1, group 2, and group 3, the timestamps are in the description box below. Hi group 1, welcome to your reading. So we're going to start off with the overall context of the reading, and we have here, so these were all at the bottom of the deck, we have here the rest card, the panther, and the otter, which is so interesting because this really interesting thing happening with the eyes here. You have the rest card. This panther card always talks to me about like fear, or like somebody being really reactive in some way. I don't know if that's you or if it's just the situation in general. But it's kind of feeling like with like this, like the eyes open versus the eyes closed, and the green is really significant as well. This otter card always represents something like a soulmate, or it doesn't have to be a person. It could just be like something that you desire or something like that that's at a distance to you, right? So it could be like a manifestation or something like that, something that you're working towards, or perhaps a person where it's like they're at a distance, which is really interesting. For whatever reason, because I was kind of getting this vibe of like you're separate, you're being separated from something. I feel like this is a past energy, like this is the context, meaning this has already happened, or it's like currently true for you right now, where you and a person or something that you desire is apart from you for whatever reason. It's kind of like there's something blocking it, or there's something in between. This whole reading is coming through with sort of like the story of Moana, if you're familiar with that story, where it's kind of like there's, if you're like the volcano or the mountain energy, where her heart, the big sort of, I'm not explaining this very well, the mountain being, her heart was taken from her, right? Something that she loved, or like her actual heart was taken from her. And because of that, she became sort of like this fiery volcano energy, which was disruptive and upset and all of that. And then when her heart is returned to her, there's this sort of like rest and peacefulness, right? So it could be something like that, where it's like your heart, or something that was taken from you perhaps, or something that was whatever, separated from you or removed from you, is being returned, and it brings all this sort of like peace and settledness, which is really interesting. So that's the overall context. I feel like that's what's happening for you if you pick this group. However, in sort of like the cards that are coming out for the actual reading part, we have these kind of like So we have disruption and the ghost, and the disruption card came out in reverse specifically. This ghost card is a really interesting card. For me, it represents sort of like something that you've let go of, but it won't let go of you. Like, it's kind of like something like an attachment that's no longer wanted, or it's like something that you've tried to end, but it just keeps coming back. It's kind of that energy. And with the disruption card coming out, it's kind of talking to me about sort of like maybe you might feel like you're going back to something, right? It's like you're going back to something that, or it feels like you're going backwards, I should say. However, what's being reassured for me in this reading for you is that no matter which way you look at the disruption card, it's still going in the same direction, meaning even though it might feel like a step back or that you're going backwards, you are actually moving forwards. It's just kind of like there's some sort of ghost energy here that's needing to be cleared. So it could be something like perhaps an old relationship or something like that that's coming back, and it's like, I thought I got rid of this already, or like, why is it coming back, or something like that. And it's because perhaps there's been something from that relationship dynamic or something like that that's been taken from you with the Panther card that caused some sort of like negative reaction or fear or something like that. And so this return of whatever this ghost energy is actually something where like your heart or something that you care about or your dream is being returned to you in order for you to move forward, right? So it is a step forward, but it feels like you're kind of having to go back in order to move forward. That's what's coming through. And underneath that is the dragonfly and the vulture. So the vulture obviously is this sort of energy of like an ending, a purging. It always talks to me about purging and purification, especially because it came out under the ghost. So that energy for sure is being cleared. I can't say with confidence that it's going to be the last time that you see this energy, but it is sort of like, because it's like it's never ending, right? Things always come back. So it's kind of like it's some sort of purging or purification or cleansing process with whatever this ghost is for you that's returning something to you. Because what you have here is this dragonfly, which I absolutely love. This card to me represents sort of just like a very significant soul experience, whether that be like a soulmate, but it doesn't have to be. It could just be something that's meant for you, or something that's like along your path, perhaps, that's being returned to you, right? It's like you had to go in this direction, or you had to experience this thing in order for your soul to grow. That's what this card is representing today. So it's really lovely. It feels like you're something is being returned to you. That's what this is feeling like. From a situation that was like really difficult, because the first cards out we have here, which are fascinating to me, this Queen of Swords, which is sort of like in the Moana story, where it's like this is the volcano that's like very angry and disruptive. So whether or not that's you or whatever, the energy of the situation, or perhaps this is talking about somebody else in your life, where it's kind of like this is a result of pain, right? So this sort of response, so it could be like feeling very angry about what happened, because it's kind of like, I always see this one as being sort of like taking revenge seems like too strong of a sentiment for this card. So it's not quite that, but it's kind of just like perhaps you're feeling angry about what happened in this situation, right? And it's kind of especially because it's coming out with the Six of Cups and the Ten of Swords, which the Six of Cups to me represents sort of like non-romantic soulmates, right? So it could be something like, or the past, or nostalgia, or like, so it could be somebody from your past. But what was really interesting, especially because it's coming out with the Ten of Swords, so obviously that situation's over, it's done. There perhaps was pain not perhaps, there absolutely was some sort of pain or hurt or whatever, difficulty, heartbreak in this situation. With this crow here, it's talking to me about like this dynamic or relationship or situation was doomed from the start, meaning like it wasn't meant to be sort of like your end game or your end goal or anything, but there was absolutely something that you learned here. I feel like perhaps if there has been something that's been taken from you, right? The reason why it's coming back, or if it's not the person exactly or the situation exactly, it's like a situation that feels very similar to that in some way, right? So it could be like a similar situation where it might bring up these memories, or this like ghost kind of like, it might bring up this sort of difficulty or challenge. But in the process, you're gaining something from it. Like something is being returned to you. So you may actually be like receiving something, or I don't know, especially because it's coming with a co-creation with the overall theme. There may be somebody who's helping you or bringing something to you, because you have these two cards, the Queen of Wands and the Fool, which like this is why the Moana story is coming in, sort of like this, the volcano, which is kind of like this angry energy, which is actually the volcano, which is sort of a symbol that I have in one of the other cards, represents sort of like this power from the root chakra. So it could be that it's like purging something in your physical environment, or that it's like returning some aspect of your power, or whatever this situation was in the past actually revealed to you some aspect of your power because it made you angry, right? Which is really interesting. So it could be something like, because anger, if used correctly, is a motivating force, right? It propels you into action, right? So it's kind of like perhaps there was some sort of like situation where something was taken from you, and so that made you angry, and in the process sort of revealed to you your power, whether or not like you, because it kind of feels like there was some action taken on your part where you ended or perhaps acted out of anger or something like that. Especially with this Panther card, right? Because this is sort of like a reactive energy, right? It's like acting out of fear or anger because something was taken from you, which is really interesting. But with the Fool here, it's like that thing is being returned because of the Little Mermaid story, right? It's like perhaps somebody took something like something that was core to you, like your voice, or like something that you are. Perhaps there was sort of like this feeling of powerlessness, right? Like they took away your power maybe, or like something like that, whatever that is in this dynamic. But now it's like the power is being returned to you. But it's all of this sort of like in a very peaceful way, because I feel like all of that anger energy is gone. Which is really interesting, because the overall theme of this was this sort of like light side versus dark side kind of energy, right? Like the in-between, the like perhaps like moral grayness kind of energy, which is really interesting. So I don't know exactly how that will play out for you, but it's kind of like perhaps something in this time ahead is like making you angry in some way, which is in turn like showing you your power, or like what it is that you are actually capable of. And in the process, it's returning something to you. I feel like that, because then, okay, so I'm just going to leave that there. The next card is the Seven of Coins, which I love so much, because this card to me talks about a co-creation, right? Especially with the fire sort of in the middle. Because the fire to me represents sort of a transformational energy. So absolutely there's some sort of transformation happening. It may be through anger, or it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like anger or something similar to that. Like it's like it doesn't even have to be, it feels kind of like very hold anger, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of like, if somebody, for instance, like oversteps a boundary that you have, for instance, it's kind of like, this is sort of like being really firm in cutting that off. That's kind of what's coming through. It doesn't have to be that exactly, but it's something similar to that, where it's kind of like there's this, perhaps almost like a peaceful anger, if that makes sense. Or just like a very, like, when you know something is wrong, or if somebody does something that's wrong, you're very clear in telling them that, is kind of how it's coming through. So that may be what you're dealing with this week, is having to like be very firm and strong in almost like telling somebody that they're overstepping, or that they're standing in the way of of something that you are meant for, or that's meant for you. It's almost like they took something from you, and it's like you're asking for it back, or you're telling them, this is mine. Whatever whatever that is. Anyways, and then what you have to end this is the Lover's card, right? Which is so gorgeous, because this is you being reunited with whoever or whatever this Otter card represents to you, right? This is kind of like, it's again with this sort of moral gray zone, where it's kind of like perhaps you're having to be really almost angry, or like cutting somebody off, or like it's kind of something like especially in Moana, right? Because the person who stole the mountain's heart was this sort of character that was very like playful, and was in the majority of the movie, right? But then it's revealed that he's the one who stole the heart. So it's kind of like maybe you're having to say to somebody that you perhaps like, or that's like a friend of yours or something like that, but they've somehow like overstepped, or they've taken something from you, or whatever it is that they've done or will do, is kind of like it's stepping in between you and your loved one, or like you and something that you're meant for, right? It's like perhaps it's somebody that you actually care about and care for, somebody that's very likable to you, maybe like you like them, or there's a strong friendship perhaps, but it's like they've taken something perhaps unintentionally. It doesn't necessarily feel like it was, well, I don't know, that might be too generous. I'm not sure exactly where that's coming through, but it's kind of like you're having to be really firm in establishing boundaries with somebody that you care about, or that's a friend of yours or something like that. And in the process, it's reuniting you with somebody or something that is meant for you. Okay, group 1. Interesting reading. I'm gonna leave it there. If this resonated with you, I would be honored if you shared, left a comment, or subscribed. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye. Hi, Group 2. Welcome to your reading. So we're going to start off with the overall context of this reading, and we have here the Flow card and the Cosmic Egg, which is really interesting. Whenever this Cosmic Egg card comes out, it's feeling kind of like a completion of something, but also there's all of this flow energy, because it feels like there's been some sort of being held back from something, or kind of like a waiting at the gate kind of energy, especially with these ones, the raccoon and the elk. These ones jumped out of the deck. They wanted to be part of your reading with the raccoon. This one talks to me about sort of like a retreat. So it could be some sort of retreat, like retreating from a situation because of for whatever reason. But it's kind of coming through a bit differently, especially because this whole reading is about co-creation, right? So it could be there's something about with this elk card. I see this card as being sort of like being called towards something, but you're not sure why. And I feel like because it's coming through with the black sun, it's kind of like this energy of like, it's not clear what it is that you're being called towards, right? Like, it's like you're being called towards an energy that is perhaps like shadowy in some way, and just in terms of like, it's not clear what it is, or there's like, it's kind of like the moon energy, right? It's like, it's not, there's not a lot of clarity in whatever the situation was. Perhaps it's like it was something risky, and perhaps there's kind of like this energy of wanting to retreat away from it because of that uncertainty, or the shrouding of it is kind of what's coming through here. But it's like, it's still calling you this direction, or perhaps a collaboration, though it doesn't have to be. But it's kind of like there's some sort of completion, which is really interesting with these cards coming out next. So you have the illumination and the isolation card, which is really interesting. Because it came out like this with the whale and the eagle sort of in this, like the whale was underneath the illumination and the eagle was underneath the isolation card. And my first instinct was to like flip them this way, right? Like, because it makes sense for the eagle to be part of the illumination, right? Just with the imagery, with like this sort of like the sun ray, and with the whale to be sort of like this energy of isolation. But the way that it came out, and I feel like that's significant, is that it's kind of like this energy here of, because I feel like this is a co-creation between two. So one person who's more of this sort of like eagle, the other is sort of representing a whale. How it was coming through is kind of like, if you think about like the ocean and the sky, both of these two like animals are almost like the biggest energy within their respective environments, right? So it's kind of like one person is coming through as the eagle. I feel like it's like their natural, perhaps, strength, let's call it, is this sort of illumination, right? It's like that, because how I'm seeing this actually, it's kind of like this, like, it's kind of like this, like opening the window, right? Or like opening the blinds. It was kind of coming through as being sort of like a portal, especially with this whale energy. It's like letting something in is kind of what this is talking about. So letting light in, that's what one person is. The whale isolation energy, a really gentle giant is this one. A really gentle giant, but has such a profound presence. Like, if you, like, I've just been noticing so many whale videos just like popping up on my feed. Like, if you are like kayaking, right, and then all of a sudden a whale comes up next to you, very friendly, but extremely intimidating, right? Like, it's because whales are very friendly creatures, I think, generally speaking, compared to the other sort of animals that you may encounter in the ocean. But because they're so massive, it's intimidating. That's what one energy is. So if I'm talking about two people, it's kind of feeling like one person is perhaps opening, like it's coming through as being sort of like an opportunity of some sort, perhaps revealing some sort of truth, maybe with this illumination card. And then this other one who has such a big presence, perhaps is a bit more like slow moving, or just like more deliberate in their movements, is kind of how it's coming through. But the reason why that these energies are kind of like flipping, right? It's like that it's kind of feeling like these two are using their specific gifts in order to help the others, kind of how it's feeling. So if like you're one of these two characters and you're receiving assistance from another who has a certain skill set that you are perhaps needing in order to move forward. So for this one, for the whale, it's kind of like this isolation card I was kind of seeing as being like a period at the end of a sentence. So it's kind of like, I feel like this whale energy, whoever that is kind of meaning some sort of like definitive ending to something, right? Like a definitive period at the end of a sentence. And it kind of feels like there's been something holding them back from moving forward because of this, right? It's kind of, because how I'm seeing this, especially because it's looking like a portal of some sort, or an opening, or like passage through something, or movement forward. It's kind of like the the space for this whale to travel through was tiny, right? It's like this is the portal. This is the opening of the portal, and it's not big enough for this whale to come through. So it's kind of like this eagle is here almost like opening or revealing or making more space available for this whale to come through or move forward of some sort, right? And it's almost like tearing something open, but it doesn't have to be that sort of like messy. It's just kind of like there's some sort of like allowing more space or creating more space for whoever this whale energy is. And then for the eagle, it's really interesting because I feel like there's kind of something about like perhaps like a steadiness, or like it's something to do with isolation, which is really interesting. So something about this eagle is that they're needing like isolation, right? Like perhaps isolating from a group of some sort. Like maybe this eagle is surrounded by others, or surrounded by energies that are needing to be, it's almost like they need to be freed from something, and somehow this whale can contribute that, right? It's kind of like it's like, because whenever I see this whale, I always see it as being like rising from the depths, right? It's kind of like when you see a whale and they jump out of the ocean and create this big splash. So it's kind of like that. It's like creating a big splash that almost like pushes everything else away from whatever this eagle is. I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but I'll go into the individual cards now. So we have here, we're starting off here with the World, which is talking to me about collaboration, right? Like two people coming together in order to accomplish some sort of goal or something like that, which is really interesting. The next card's coming out, the Knight of Coins and the King of Swords. So I feel like, so this Knight of Coins, I'm seeing that as being like the whale energy. Whoever, if you're resonating with that energy, because the Knight of Coins to me is a very slow moving energy, as I said with the whale, something that takes a lot of trust and time, right? Like something that moves slowly, but each process is very deliberate, or each action is very deliberate. That's what this Knight of Coins is. And there's kind of like, again, the whale itself is very intimidating, but there's also with this energy, the King of Swords, the eagle, whoever they are, also very intimidating in their own right, because how I'm seeing this is the King of Swords here is depicted by like a griffin. So in Harry Potter, one of the animals, I don't think it's called a griffin in Harry Potter, but similar idea. There's a amount of respect that is owed to the eagle, whatever they are. It's like that. Perhaps this one's just like with the King of Swords. It's kind of like there's a caution of what is said, or how the attitude that's like it's kind of like perhaps this one doesn't take jokes well, or it's like they're very serious in some way, or it's kind of like they expect some degree of like respect in sort of the first meeting is kind of what's coming through here. I don't know exactly. So it might be somebody new, right? It's kind of like when you see them, it's like they're very serious, or they have like some sort of like they command respect or demand respect, maybe. Or it's like they don't take, if you don't take this situation seriously, it's like they become really offended easily, maybe something like that. which is really interesting because I feel like that's not exactly like who, like what, but once you get to know them, maybe it's like they're much more warm, or they're like very friendly, or it's like you don't need to sort of like, it's kind of like once you gain their loyalty, they're loyal forever. It's that kind of energy. It's not, but the first meeting, maybe it feels almost like there's like a caution, or like that the way in which you approach is perhaps needing to be very deliberate or serious, or it's like they're perhaps not trusting at first, or something like that. I don't know exactly what that's going to represent. But then what you have next here, you have the Three of Coins. Sorry, no, the Three of Cups and the Wheel of Fortune, which is really interesting. So this Wheel of Fortune was coming in with this sort of trickster energy, because this is the trickster god that's depicted in this Wheel of Fortune, where it's kind of like there's something about, I feel like there's, especially because it's coming through with illumination as being the main energy, something about this situation has been sort of unclear, right? There's been some sort of like perhaps a misunderstanding, or just like not a lot of clarity. There's been some sort of mystery about the situation that's been that is going to be revealed now, is kind of how it's feeling. Because what else was coming through with this King of Swords? I was reading this other book recently where the Griffin character is kind of like, was sort of a representation of the enemy or the other. So like in this society, the Griffins were the enemy. They were at war with the Griffins. So it could be something like there's somebody here, perhaps, that you are needing assistance from, but they're opposing you in some way, or that's at least the appearance. It's like that's the sort of trickster energy. It's almost like asking help, like seeking assistance from somebody that you always believed to be your enemy, or something like that, which is really interesting. And again, enemy is such a strong word. It's like somebody that perhaps like you've been on opposing sides with, or that there's been perhaps conflict or separation from this person, and it's like you're having to ask them for something, but perhaps asking them is a bit intimidating, because they come off as being this sort of like really strong, really I don't know, but it's like there's something about their energy that feels perhaps unapproachable, or something like that. There's a trickster aspect about that. It's like whatever it is that you're feeling about this card, where it's like you're seeing them as being perhaps more intimidating, or more like powerful. That's what this raccoon energy might be, the retreating, right? It's like your instinct when you approach this one is to retreat for whatever reason. That's changing. I feel like there's something here, because I feel like maybe you're needing to take a gamble on this, is kind of what's coming through with the Three of Cups. It was talking about like fortunes received from a gamble. And again, there's kind of like this flipping of like something, perhaps like a change of perspective in terms of like what it is that you're seeing about this person, or what it is that you are experiencing in response to whatever it is that their appearances maybe. Okay, anyways, but what's really interesting in the next three cards, so after the Wheel of Fortune, which of course is a major arcana, you have three major arcana coming out next. The Hanged Man, the Strength card, and the Ten of Wands. That's not a major arcana, but it's coming through with a similar energy, because if you notice here, in all of these cards, there's sort of like this, like, all of this sort of like foliage in the outside, right? Especially with the World card, that was sort of emphasizing that. So to me, that's just representing abundance of some sort. But it's also kind of like this energy of like the portal of like moving through something, moving through an opening or an opportunity that's going to be very abundant is what this is feeling like to me, because it's kind of like, especially with this one with the hands, it's like this situation, whatever it is, perhaps you've been feeling like you've been held back from something that could have been very abundant, but it's like you couldn't get through whatever this opening was, right? It's like this opportunity was not opening up to you in the way that you expected it to or that you needed it to. But all of a sudden, it's like because of this one's assistance or this one's help or the collaboration from this one, it's like you suddenly are able to grasp or to start collecting the abundance that you were anticipating but perhaps being held back from, right? That's what this flow energy is feeling like. It's like the energy is flowing again, or you are moving again, and it's like you're collecting all of this abundance. Because this hanged man card talks about stasis, right? Like being in an energy of non-movement or like stagnation of some sort, but there's all of this abundance around you. It's almost like you were asleep to it, or that it was masked in some way. Like perhaps the abundance was masked, or like abundance was hidden, or abundance was like shrouded, but all of a sudden it's like the eagle energy, whoever they are like pulling back the curtain on what's surrounding you, and it's all of this abundance, which is really interesting. And this strength card, because I'm seeing this strength card as being sort of like this griffin energy, right? It's like this like creature that is sort of scary, but I see this as sort of being like scratching your dog or something like that. So it could be something like there's a partnership or a camaraderie that comes from this simple ask. It's like befriending something that you once found scary is kind of what's coming through here. And with the 10 of Wands, which is really interesting, the message that came through with this card is kind of like, it's kind of like the story of Vincent van Gogh, where he worked so hard in achieving his goal of becoming like an artist, right? But he didn't actually reap the rewards while he was alive. It's kind of like once he passed, all of this abundance happened. But I feel like that's what this energy is trying to avoid. It's kind of like the abundance is all around you already. It's like, don't wait until you're dead until you start collecting on it, is kind of the energy that's coming through. Because I feel like that's what this retreat is, right? This one talks about sort of an artist who is too shy perhaps to step out into the spotlight. So it's kind of like you've been working towards something, or there's like, it's like your abundance is waiting to be claimed, but it's kind of like you've been sleeping, or there's been some sort of shroud over your eyes that's been preventing you from seeing the abundance. And it's kind of like the energy of this reading is like, it's all around you. There's perhaps somebody or some opportunity here that is looking to be kind of intimidating or contrary to what you believed initially is what's coming through. Like, it's like it requires something that it requires respect, first of all, like respect and almost like humbling yourself, or humbling. It's a humbling experience. Maybe there's a humbling experience coming through. It's like, it's not something that you perhaps envision for yourself, but it's extremely abundant. It's like once you step into this, perhaps with a very deliberate motion, it's like all of this abundance becomes available to you. Okay, group 2, I'm gonna leave it there. If this resonated with you, I'd be honored if you liked, commented, or subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye. Hi group 3, welcome to your reading. So let's get started with the overall context of your reading. So these were at the bottom of the deck. So you have reflection and protection, which is really interesting just in how these cards are like mirroring each other, or they're very similar in terms of their composition. So this was kind of bringing in this energy of mirroring or partnership for some reason. That's sort of what the energy was that I was getting from these cards, was partnership. And then at the bottom of the deck was the Swan card, which is really incredible because it's all of this sort of like reflection energy again in both of these decks. So it's kind of like so there may be sort of a situation where it's like a partnership or something like that is coming together, is kind of how it's feeling, or that there's like this mirroring experience that's happening between you and another person, perhaps like a soulmate or a significant other. Like they're going through a similar or like a mirroring sort of process where I don't know. We'll talk about what the situation is. I feel like there is sort of this coming together though, whatever that is for you. So if it's not a partnership, if it's not a specific person, it could just be like an opportunity or something like that, or some aspect of like long-term stability is what's coming through with the cards. So that's the overall context. Like this is just incredible to me. The protection card is really interesting. So I've been trying to take a break from like wearing bracelets and things like that, but for this reading I just felt like I needed the black tourmaline, which is a very protective stone. So it may be helpful for you in this time if you are into crystals or anything like that. But it's also very grounding because I feel like there's anxiety associated with this reading today, because it's kind of like there's a lot of swift movement happening for you. If you pick this group, there's a lot of swift movement and growth and change. But in that process, it's like there's something coming to an end, was how it was coming through. There's something here that you're leaving or that you're moving away from that perhaps is causing anxiety, because it's like perhaps it's feeling like perhaps there's something unsafe about it or risky or whatever. It's like it's feeling like very much like it's activating your root chakra in some way. So it could be like your sense of safety feels like it's being threatened. I don't want to, it's like I don't want to say that you're in any danger of any sort. It's nothing like that. It just feels like there's anxiety that's being sort of stirred up or activated in response to whatever this change is. And so there may be this sort of need for grounding, but also remembering that you are protected in whatever this situation is, and that part of the anxiety may be just because of this sort of like the growth and the movement. Because, so for growth, which is really interesting, any sort of expansion process or something that requires growth can be sort of painful in the moment, right? It's kind of like something that's perhaps painful or difficult or challenging, I want to say, is prompting this growth, because it's kind of like when you look back on it, you're going to see that it was for your own good, or that it was a process of growth or maturity or development of some sort. But in the moment, it might feel painful or uncomfortable or difficult in some way. But the good news is that it's going to be very quick. It's going to move very quickly, whatever the situation is, because the first card that you have here is the cheetah. And then you also have the Knight of Swords, which is also a very fast moving energy, right? So a lot of quick momentum is kind of what this situation is feeling like. I feel like this is talking about like whatever situation it is that you're leaving, you're going to be leaving it very quickly. With the Knight of Swords, it may require some sort of like sending a message or something like that, or like there's communication involved in some way, or you may be receiving communication, or there may be this sort of like well, that's interesting. I don't know why I just lost my words there. Maybe that's kind of like, that's part of it. It's kind of like there's this moment of silence, maybe? A moment of silence that tells you it's time to move, which is really interesting, okay? Because you have here next the Judgment card, right? This Judgment card is is like, this is something that you're going towards, is kind of how it's feeling. It's like the sun bursting through the clouds, right? It's like this moment of silence, or like a moment of awe, even like just being shocked perhaps at something, but that's almost like your signal to move. It's like seeing something or experiencing something that's so shocking. I want to say in a good way, like it feels like it's propelling you into action of some sort. It could be that you're like having some sort of experience that shows you what the next step is, maybe, right? So it's like it's showing you the next step and how to take it. Could be some sort of like revelation or epiphany where it's like, I understand what to do now, right? It could be something like that, like receiving some sort of communication or message that reveals the next step. And it's like, once you get that, everything moves really quickly, is what that's feeling like. What's really interesting are these two cards, the Four of Swords and the Three of Wands. Because this Four of Swords card, it comes in with this story of like some sort of threat has been neutralized. It's... which is such an extreme sort of language, but it's kind of feeling like with the Four of Swords, perhaps there's been something like standing in your way, or there's been some sort of delay. It doesn't feel like that necessarily. Perhaps there was some sort of conflict in your space that's coming to an end, right? That's what's being shifted. That's the transition that's happening. Something that was very difficult and challenging, perhaps, that you've been seeking an answer or solution to, but perhaps it's like, I don't know, it's just been a challenging situation is kind of how it's feeling. But it's like there's almost like a moment of silence, right? like a sudden epiphany where it's like something about this threat or this challenging situation is being neutralized, meaning it's no longer a threat, it's being taken out for you, it's being handled for you, where it's like you don't have to worry about this. And it's kind of like, while this threat is neutralized, that's your opportunity to leave the situation with the Three of Wands. Because I always see this as sort of like exiting really quickly from perhaps an energy of like, it kind of feels like escape, but it doesn't feel that like it does. There is a sense of urgency in this reading that could just be a result of the anxiety, but because of this, it's kind of like there's going to be an opening for you to move or to leave a situation that perhaps feels a bit like there's an urgency, or like this is your shot. This is your chance for you to get out of whatever this situation is. And a reminder that you are protected because you're moving towards something here. So you have here the turtle, which is, to me, just emphasizing this energy of protection, right? Like you carry all of the protection with you. You don't have to worry about sort of like where you're going, because I feel like you don't even know where you're going yet is kind of what's coming through the unicorn. Because I feel like right now the focus is on whatever it is that you're leaving. That's sort of like the main focus of whatever the situation is. It's not even necessarily showing me what it is that you're going towards. Perhaps you don't know. Perhaps that will be revealed to you in sort of this judgment energy. It's like the clouds part and then you suddenly see where it is you're supposed to be going, or what it is that you're supposed to be moving towards. And that's sort of like your sign to go. But it could be kind of like with the unicorn, having to really, really put trust in your intuition and sort of like your non-physical senses, like being able to see with your third eye, that kind of thing, being able to like receive synchronicities and signs and like communication from the universe in order to move towards whatever this like thing is. But I feel like it will be very clear to you, right? It's almost like the silence is what makes it clear to you. The peace or the, like, just this. This is almost like when you're moving really fast, like you can't hear anything, right? It's like you're in a wind tunnel of some sort. But anyways, what's coming out after this, right? After the Three of Wands, where it's like you've made your escape You've made your exit. You've left a situation that was really challenging. All of this like beautiful energy is coming up next. The Ace of Cups, the Hierophant, Four of Wands, Ace of Wands, and the King of Cups. So you have two aces, right? There's unconditional love and a new inspiration, like something that really lights you up, something that's like perhaps like a new creative project or something like that. And then you have here the Hierophant and the Four of Wands, which is so lovely. This Hierophant card talks about belonging to me, like all that you are is accepted in this new place. Everything about you is accepted and honored and respected in wherever it is that you're going. It's also very long-standing, traditional. Though I don't want to use the word traditional. It just feels, perhaps it's like a new sort of traditional, or it's kind of like a return to who you are at the core is kind of how that's feeling. Like it's like it's true to who you are, whatever the situation is that you're going towards, the new thing, wherever you're moving towards. And it will be very long-standing. It will be very stable, especially because it's coming through with the Four of Wands. So this one always looks to me like a wedding, but it doesn't have to be like, again, there's all of this sort of like mirroring partnership, right? So it could be that there's two of you where it's like you're leaving a situation that's been challenging. They're also leaving a situation that's been challenging. Those situations are mirrored in some way. There's something similar about both of your situations that are mirrored, that are shared, that's in common with both of them. And it's like you're coming together, you're meeting at this sort of like Ace of Cups energy, right? It's like this like place of belonging, a place of like wherever it is that you're leaving a situation that's very difficult. That's what's coming to an end and moving into this sort of like celebration, unconditional love, coming together, just joyfulness is what that feels like with the Ace of Wands and also the King of Cups. This King of Cups card, so it feels like whatever this journey is for you it kind of feels like it might be like an emotional roller coaster, which is it feels like a very emotional journey, that whatever it is that you'll be dealing with will like stir up your emotions, both good and bad, right? Because it's kind of like you're having to leave a situation that might be difficult. In hindsight, it will be experienced as growth, but in the moment it might feel uncomfortable. And then you're moving towards some sort of like really lovely unconditional love overflow, celebration with your loved ones, that kind of thing. And then with the King of Cups here, so again, mastery of emotions is generally the King of Cups talks about, but this card specifically from this deck represents to me this sort of like idea of almost like destiny. I know that's such a big word, but like something that you are destined to create perhaps, or that's part of your journey in some way, or that it's an aspect of self that encourages you to be the best version of who you are, right? It's a sign, or it's a symbol or representation of you, of who you are meant to be in sort of like a destined way. I know that's such a big sort of energy to wrap your head around, but it's kind of like whatever it is that you're going towards is all of this like it's for your growth, the growth of your soul, for like the best version of who you are and could be is what you're going towards. And your movement in this direction is absolutely protected, and like it's like the universe is gifting you this perfect opportunity to leave a difficult situation, whatever that is for you. It's like this is an ending of whatever that is, and it's up to you whether or not you're going to choose to take the ladder that's being offered. And I feel like it's going to feel incredibly like because it's kind of like it's gonna move fast, but it's almost like because of maybe like adrenaline or something like that, it's almost like time stands still, or it feels like a moment of silence or a moment of peace, even though whatever's happening is moving really quickly. It's like it's almost like time slows down, or like the moment elongates in a way that you can like actually comprehend what's happening. I don't know what that is talking about. It feels incredibly like significant, obviously, but perhaps maybe uncomfortable in the moment. But I feel like it's almost like there's going to be a lot of peace that comes with whatever this situation is. So group 3, I'm going to end it there. If this message resonated with you, I would be honored if you liked, shared, commented, or subscribed. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.